Okay, welcome everybody. Ben Dowell here from Adventis, your friendly investment banking coach. We're on the line today with Stephanie Hockman of Amherst University. She is an expert in helping students get ready for the investment banking recruitment process, and we're going to gather some of her wisdom today. Great to see you, Stephanie. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you got here, and your role at Amherst.
Yeah. Well, Ben, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a great opportunity to talk about both Amherst College, but also, Adventis and how we use it here on campus. By way of background, I have over 30 years of experience in the finance industry. I started my career at a firm that now no longer exists, Arthur Andersen. I was a tax consultant there, working mainly with hedge funds and investment partnerships, and then left in 2000 and went over to Bank of America and eventually BNP Paribas, where I spent 15 years as a managing director and banker, running teams both in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, London, and Hong Kong. I joined Amherst College in 2015, and here I am the program director for careers and business and finance. In addition to that role, I am also the founder of Alvista Loop, which is a talent development and executive coaching business, and I'm a consultant to startups, mostly in the finance industry or those that are in the recruiting realm. So kind of happy to talk about anything as it relates to Amherst College and how we've been partnered with Adventis since 2017.
Okay, excellent. Well, yeah, I think you're what a fantastic and perfect background for the role that you have at Amherst. Can you say more about that role and how did the role come to be? Did you fill in for someone else, or were you the first person? And how have you developed the role as you've gone forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, in 2015, the president of the college at the time had a 7-stage initiative, and part of that initiative was to build out career services. And what they decided to do here at the Loeb Center for Career Exploration and Planning is to develop out career communities that are led by program directors with expertise in their particular industry. So when they hired me in 2015, there was no program, there was no predecessor, which was great for me. I love to build businesses and get them
Clean
off.
slate.
Yep, clean slate. So everything was uphill from there, both in building it, but also the success rate. We built the program over the course of 2 years. The finance program was built in the first year, and then we built out more programs around consulting and startups and entrepreneurship that came afterwards. But the finance program has been going now for about 10 years, and we have about 22 to 24% of our student population that participates within the finance program.
Oh,
Part of where we focus the program is first and foremost on exploration, and then on preparation, and then execution. And then with alumni, I'm also working with sort of their career growth and trajectory from there. When I joined, there was another person that was doing sort of my role, but not dedicated to that role. And what we decided to do is really think about how we wanted to build this program to help the liberal arts students here at Amherst College supplement their great education with some of that pre-professional information to help them get the jobs in investment banking, private investing, other buy-side roles. One thing I did was talk to a lot of students and alumni and figure out what they had and what they didn't have, and then start to fill in all the gaps. They had been using a different provider for their financial modeling. And after doing a lot of research and testing them over the first couple of years of the program, I moved to Adventis in 2017, mainly because of the certification program behind it and that ability to help students demonstrate to employers that they're supplementing their liberal arts education with that professional understanding of financial modeling. And one thing we did as we started developing out the program was think about where we could continue to enhance the program. And so we started out initially using Adventis just to get the students certified, teach them how to do a financial model, and be able to demonstrate that to employers. But over time, as things have really shifted within the finance industry, especially post-COVID, we actually formed within the finance program here at Amherst College a really intensive, intentional program where we take students from exploration in spring of their first year through the summer and fall, where they go through a 5-day intensive program where they learn not only financial accounting, enterprise versus equity value, but also everything that relates around valuing a company. And included in that is getting their Adventis certification, at least the level 1 certification, and then taking that and being able to then do a stock pitch for our students that are looking to go to the buy side or even in sales and trading. So they'll take their financial model and a company they're interested in and create not only the financial model, but also how do I pitch this company as a good investment going forward?
Excellent. Excellent. And so you mentioned that when you first came into the organization, you reviewed multiple providers. There was a modeling provider already in place. Talk more about that exploratory process and how you evaluated those different providers and why you landed on Adventis.
Sure. So having spent 15 years at a couple of different investment banks, I have been trained by a vendor called Training the Street. And so I knew it pretty well, partly from my own personal experience and also the analysts and associates that I ran through the different training programs as a leader in that at BNP Paribas. When I came to campus, they were using Wall Street Prep as a provider that would come onto campus twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring, to do a 2-day boot camp. Yeah. And the response I got from the students was that it just wasn't compelling enough. It didn't engage them enough in the programming. So I then went out and looked at Training the Street from a college perspective versus a corporate perspective. I looked at Pillars of Wall Street. I looked at Wall Street Mojo. I can't remember all the other ones. We tried Pillars of Wall Street as a boot camp for 1 year, and quite honestly, their trainers were not up to the skill level that I would have expected from a corporate and or collegiate training program. I was first introduced to Adventis by one of our 2017 alumna. He actually came to me and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm working at XYZ investment bank. We didn't really get a chance to use the programming there at Amherst College. So I went post Amherst College, took the Adventis program, and it helped me land this job at an investment bank." Wow. So I was then introduced to Adventis, and we tried it for the first year in 2017, just doing in-person boot camps. And over time, we've morphed, definitely post-COVID, into our own campus trainers that we have. We have it integrated into boot camps, but also a lot of our students, we have about 85 students a year going through class years, going into the program, and about 20 to 25% of them get certified through our intensive program.
Okay, fantastic. And so talk about the impact that you've seen Adventis have on students. How does it help them prepare for either the interview process or for being on the desk when they get there?
Yeah, when we first started using Adventis, it really was both geared towards sophomores and juniors. And the juniors were using it as a way to get reacquainted, so to speak, with the financial modeling before they went into their junior summer internship. Nowadays, what we've seen is most of the students participating are our sophomores that are gearing up for the interview process. And so, for example, this past October, we had our 5-day intensive workshop where they went through everything, got their Adventis certification. And what we've heard from students is that it's actually helping them answer those, walk me through a discounted cash flow and get to unlevered free cash flow. And they can, because they've done the discounted cash flow model, they're able to then visualize as they're answering their questions and even be able to go into some of the more difficult questions that they're getting from some of the top tier boutique and bulge bracket investment banks. What students have told me is that when they're going through the online programming, they really like the ability to learn independently and at their own speed, stop, figure it out, go back. But more importantly, they also like our boot camps that we do during the fall because it reinforces that. And, we've been really lucky that we have our own student trainers now. It took us a few years to get to that point, but we have now our seniors that are doing all the training of our sophomores. And that's really built a pay it forward mentality, both with Adventis and also the interview prep.
Fantastic for long-term sustainability of the program there.
Absolutely.
No, that's well done. That's best practices for sure. So yeah, that's great. So you mentioned a few things, and I've seen that as well, that when you go through the model, because it's not just a talk at you course, right? The students have to do They learn by doing instead of learn by listening. And that makes a lot of sense. That really resonates with me what you said, and that they're can more effectively answer questions about discounted cash flow in the interview process because they physically built that model multiple times. I've also heard people say, when you have to answer the question, walk me through, depreciation changes by $10. Walk me through the impact of three statements. That becomes much easier because they've made the connections between all the three statements, right? They've connected the balance sheet to the cash flow statement physically.
Yep.
And so they can visualize that more effectively. So thank you for sharing that specific example. That absolutely resonates. So I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit and ask you more about what you're seeing in terms of the industry, specifically investment banking industry hiring for their entry level talent, both the junior internship and also full time. What changes have you seen? What trends have you seen either recently or maybe evolved more slowly over the last couple of years?
It definitely has changed quite a bit, especially post-COVID, and not only the way they're doing the interview process, but the timeline. So the finance industry, I think at times wants you to come out of high school already knowing you want to be an investment banker, which in my personal opinion is unfair to college students to not really get the exploration timeframe. But what we have seen over, starting in 2018, 2019 graduating classes is earlier and earlier timeline for junior year internship recruiting. And this year is a great example. Almost everyone has launched their application process by January 1st, or at least by January 15th, which means that our sophomores have to be ready 18 months in advance of them actually starting their internship program. And that's been really tough for sophomores because you have to do all your exploration and figure out by the time you're done with your freshman year, is this even something I want to do? And then I've got to spend my summer and my fall getting prepared for those interview processes. So what we've done at Amherst is really try to create a foolproof plan that if they actually follow during the summer and the fall, it helps them get that job, or at least the internship. But I have seen more and more of the companies earlier and earlier recruiting on the investment banking side. And that's everything from bulge bracket to middle market to boutique. They're all kind of following the same timeline nowadays. And then I would say the other big trend we're seeing is a lot of private equity firms or private investing firms picking up investment bankers after their junior year internship for full-time hiring. So some of these private investing firms are doing internships, but a lot of them are picking off the investment bankers after their 10 weeks of internships at the investment bank to go into full-time. And that's had a couple
after graduation.
Right after graduation.
Wow.
So there's certainly still the investment banking firms that are doing, on-cycle recruiting right as you start your job. But we are seeing some of the private equity firms picking up investment bankers from, Evercore, Goldman Sachs, et cetera, to start right after graduation. The impact of that is twofold. One, it's making on-cycle private investing recruiting even earlier. I think we're going to see it probably close to May or June for the class of 2025. But the other thing that is a result of this is that there's been more full-time hiring. So when I would think back to 2015 to even 2020, 99% of full-time analyst class are hired from the internship class. And what I'm seeing now are trends closer to 85 to 90% being filled by the intern class, and the rest having to come back into the summer and fall before someone's senior year and pick them up for full-time hiring, which is a great opportunity for seniors who came late to the party, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's almost good news for folks trying to break into the industry, because of the competition for those highly experienced bankers coming out of the 10 weeks of internships. I tease, but no, that's great. That's interesting. I did not know that the PE firms were coming that early. We've seen this long-term trend of going earlier and earlier, but that's certainly taking it to a new level and really fascinating to know about.
Yeah, I think the next trend is going to be more and more internship programs where they don't even go to the investment bank. One private investing firm I talked to said, why would I take somebody from name the investment bank and train them all over again to do it in the way that we think about investing? So I think it's a trend that we're going to continue to see. I think private investing could potentially be a really unique opportunity for students that are interested in the investment cycles and not just investment banking.
That's great. Absolutely.
Huh. Well, that's interesting because I've heard, I guess, how do I balance that with other things that I've heard? Because I've heard that the private equity firms and private investing firms, they really value that 2 to 3 years experience on the job at the desk, right? Managing deal processes, building data rooms, doing all the hard work of really bringing a deal to fruition, and that they didn't want to do that training. But it sounds like that's changing.
I think every firm is different. There's, I think the last time I counted, there's 10,000 plus buy side investment firms, hedge funds, and private investing.
Yep.
So every firm's going to have their own twist on it. It's whether they feel like, what they're getting either at their college or university or what they're getting in their internships is enough to slot them in. A lot of firms are doing both, right? They might bring in a couple directly after an internship and then supplement that with on-cycle or even off-cycle recruiting. I think that, with the M&A activity we're expecting in 25, they'll want people with lots of experience, but they're also going to need bodies on the buy side of the investment vehicle or the investment thesis in order to make sure they get deals done and put their dry powder to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked a little bit about how Adventis and preparing for interviews. I guess what feedback have you heard in terms of those who've taken Adventis and how it supports them when they're in the job?
I've seen it in two different ways. One, students coming back, I deal with a lot of our alumni, especially as they're going through on-cycle and off-cycle private investing recruiting. And, they tell me initially it would take them 6 to 9 months to come up to speed and be on par with, say, a Wharton grad or someone that's doing a more pre-professional program at their college or university. When I started in 2015, I would hear from alumni and employers, they need another 6 to 9 months to get up to speed.
Wow.
And now I'm hearing from both this alumni and our employers that there almost is no gap between what the students who have completed Adventis are able to do when they hit the desk, either for their internship or full-time, versus somebody from Wharton. And I think that is attributable partly to Adventis, and obviously it's attributable to our students who are putting the effort and time into learning it and practicing it.
Well, and to you, of course, in your leadership and architecting this, broader program as well.
Yeah. The program is the biggest part. I think what students get at, say, a Wharton or my alma mater, the University of Texas, right? What we were getting in our pre-professional programs is all that accounting and all that financial analysis and being able to do that day in and day out in our classes. And what I see here at Amherst College, because it's pure liberal arts, is students taking what we call the 5th class, right? It's that class that gets them over the hump in the intensive understanding of all this and then the recruiting aspect.
Excellent.
Yeah, so they really get the best of both worlds. They get that sort of, classical liberal arts education that challenges you to think independently, but also the more tactical, hard-nosed, finance training that they need to really be successful in that first 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic combination. So I guess if you were advising a university on how to set up a new program to improve their placement rates in investment banking, or a new club that's standing up to support their students with investment banking and recruiting, I guess what are some key pieces of advice that you would give them?
Well, I think it's doing exactly what I did 10 years ago, which is taking a step back and saying what's offered and what's not offered and figuring out where your gaps are in the process. Gaps both within the education and exploration of things, but also, gaps in the timing, right? Because oftentimes at pre-professional programs, they might be developing out programs, but it's geared toward juniors where it really needs to be geared toward early stage second years.
But,
so I would say taking a step back, understanding where your gaps are, and then figuring out what attributes or what vendors you need to bring in to supplement what's already there. Where we've really used Adventis is, as much as I could probably teach how to do a financial model, I've been away from actually building a model for a long time, but Could I teach it? Sure. But I find that bringing in Adventis and especially, seniors and our student trainers being able to do the training, it really helps students grasp it a bit more than listening to someone with my vintage of knowledge try to teach it to them. So I think that's been the other important part, is bringing in the right vendor and having done that analysis. And then I think the third thing that I've really learned over the last 5 years or so when we developed the intensive program is really how to build that into the overall overarching model of teaching them accounting, teaching them valuation, teaching them how to actually build the financial model, and then teaching them how to be an investor and pitch the actual company. So it sets them up not only to be a great investment banker, but also to think in the shoes of the investment banker's clients, like the financial sponsors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's well said. Great advice. I think, and something I've also found about Adventis as well is, maybe addressing what you had mentioned in terms of you'd rather have Adventis do the training. You can do it, but it just makes more sense for them to do it. What I found too is Adventis is almost a prerequisite to get into more modeling. And so I think, so give me your feedback on this perspective. I guess what I've found is Adventis is a great prerequisite to maybe an upper level financial modeling elective in the finance department, or even a Training the Street, boot camp. When I took Training the Street, because I took TTS and Wall Street Prep, and they were always doing these really advanced like accretion dilution models, and we're pulling information from the 10K, and it was really hard for me to worry about keystrokes, setting things up, formatting, doing it without a mouse, when I was also simultaneously trying to learn these really advanced technical concepts. What are your thoughts there?
I think that's absolutely correct. I know that the way we use it here at Amherst is that, they get the certification, they know how to do the nuts and bolts, and then we have them apply it in that stock valuation concept. So they're getting to use it. I would imagine at a lot of other universities that are, have business schools where you're taking your finance major, it is, as a freshman, probably going to help you get an A in one of your finance valuation courses as a sophomore, because you've taken that. I do know at other universities, investment clubs or investment banking clubs and organizations that are student run on campuses use it as a way to discern who should deserve to be into the investment club or the investment banking club. We don't have that sort of discernment at Amherst College, but I do know our investment club, has their own stock pitch competitions, has their own investments that they put into their portfolio, and the analysts in that are using Adventis, or at least financial modeling, to help put the right positions into their portfolio. So I do think it's really good. I do think that's what I was getting at earlier when I said, we analyzed Wall Street Prep. We looked at Pillars of Wall Street. I think Wall Street Prep is a great example where students just didn't feel engaged. And I think it's probably because they were lost. I sat in there and went, you guys are going way too fast for these kids. I'm barely keeping up, and I've done this. And I think that, the boot camps are great, but I think the combination of being able to do the online course and then supplement it with a boot camp has really been the perfect combination for our Amherst College students to learn both asynchronously as well as synchronously.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate that perspective.
Well, I think we're getting close to wrapping up here. So, Eddie, are there any final thoughts, any parting points of wisdom that you wanted to provide before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I would say just, having been within the finance industry in multiple capacities for 30 plus years, that makes me feel old at times. But the one thing that I think I learned the most having been here at Amherst College is that the finance industry is constantly changing, both timelines, what they're expecting from you, being able to think outside of the box, as well as do the technical skills. And although I think there are multiple things that students have to do to be prepared to be an investment banker or a private investor, Adventis is one thing that I found that is just a great stepping stool to help the students go from point A to point B. And I would encourage my colleagues at other colleges and universities to think about how it might fit into whether it's their programming through career services, or their programming in their finance courses, or within clubs, because I think it's just one of those great tools to have in the toolkit to help students get into the job that they want.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, and especially earlier on in their undergraduate career, so you establish that foundation. I think it gives them a better ability to harness or to capture some of the knowledge and wisdom from the professors who want to dig into those more advanced topics. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time, Stephanie. Great to see you, and we'll connect again soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you.